Brothers and sisters, I speak to you today not only as an observer, but as an African whose heart aches when he sees children in tears. In recent days, we have watched videos of pupils from other African countries barred from South African schools. We have seen riot police firing tear gas while children cry and beg for entry. Even the world's strictest immigration regimes allow every child up to the age of 18 to attend school. Turning away our own African children shames us all. It forces us to ask, what happened to the solidarity that liberated South Africa, Africa's sacrifice during apartheid? It is worth remembering that the fall of apartheid was not a solo victory. It was a collective effort that cost other African nations blood and treasure. Nelson Mandela's first foreign trip after his release in 1990 was an 18-day tour to thank countries that had sheltered the African National Congress, ANC. Those nations, Namibia, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Swaziland, now Eswatini, Lesotho, Angola, Zambia, Malawi, and Tanzania were dubbed the frontline states. While the ANC was banned at home, these countries provided what one historian described as sites for military training, launching pads from which to infiltrate South Africa and impose other pressures on the apartheid government. Tanzania opened its doors to the ANC after the Sharperville massacre. Frene Ginwala established an ANC office in Dar es Salaam and received leaders such as Oliver Tambo and Yusuf Dadoo. Julius Nyerere's government hosted refugees, set up training camps, and even allowed the ANC to build the Solomon Mahlangu Freedom College to educate exiled children. Zambia became the ANC headquarters in 1969. From Lusaka, Radio Freedom broadcast news across southern Africa, and Zambian soldiers defended the ANC from South African attacks. Angola provided bases for Umkhonto we Sizwe (MK) fighters after its own independence, while Botswana served as a clandestine conduit with citizens like Fish Keitzing, establishing safe houses and secret routes for Nelson Mandela to re-enter South Africa. Lesotho and Swaziland allowed exiles to train and offered scholarships. Lesotho even allocated 25% of its state scholarships to South African youth. Mozambique hosted ANC fights, safe houses, and paid dearly. South African raids killed activists in Matola, yet President Samora Machel stood beside Tambo and proclaimed the Day of Friendship. Zimbabwe's ZAPU helped MK recruits cross its borders and coordinated militarily with the ANC, recognizing that both nations were fighting a common enemy. Archbishop Desmond Tutu later wrote that South Africa could not have achieved freedom without people around the world who used boycott and divestment to force governments and corporations to abandon apartheid. Nigeria's sacrifice and leadership. Nigeria, though distant from southern Africa, assumed a leadership role in the anti-apartheid struggle. As a newly independent state, it adopted an anti-apartheid foreign policy and helped found the Organization of African Unity to prioritize the liberation of your oppressed countries. When South Africans were suffering, ordinary Nigerians launched the South Africa Relief Fund in 1976. They raised more than $10.5 million despite their own economic challenges. Successive Nigerian governments channeled funds to the ANC and PAC. Nigeria was also the first African country to impose comprehensive sanctions on the apartheid regime, cutting trade and diplomatic ties in 1960. It used its seat in the Commonwealth to push for the 1979 Gleneagles Agreement, prohibiting sporting contacts with South Africa, and chaired the United Nations Special Committee against Apartheid, keeping global attention on the issue. The government offered scholarships to South African exiles through its Southern African Relief Fund, allowing thousands to study in Nigerian institutions. Nigerian military academies trained liberation fighters, and the country supplied arms and logistical support to the frontline states. These efforts came at a cost. Nigeria forfeited potential oil revenue, faced diplomatic retaliation, and endured domestic protests and arrests. Yet, Nigerians considered it a moral obligation to help their African brothers and sisters. Decades earlier, Nelson Mandela warned against both white and black domination. He believed that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, black and white. Mandela steered his country away from civil war by embracing reconciliation. His words remain a moral compass for us now. Why xenophobia betrays our shared struggle. Today, when foreigners, particularly black Africans, are attacked in the townships, when businesses owned by Nigerians, Zimbabweans, or Mozambicans are destroyed, we dishonor the sacrifices of those who sheltered and fed our freedom fighters. Foreign workers helped build South Africa's mines, farms, and cities alongside the white and black South Africans. Even during apartheid, migrant labor from Malawi, Mozambique, and Lesotho propped up the economy. Many of those workers remain raising families and paying taxes. They are not the reason for unemployment or crime. South Africa faces serious challenges: inequality, corruption, and a slow economy. But turning on our fellow Africans will not create jobs or improve services. Instead of street violence, South Africans should use their political power to demand policies that restructure the economy in favor of the poor majority. This means holding representatives accountable, debating amendments to the Constitution to ensure equitable land reform, and enacting tough laws against criminals, regardless of nationality. Immigration systems must be fair and firm, but schools and hospitals must remain humanitarian spaces. Denying a child an education because her parents are Mozambican or Zimbabwean is not only cruel, it is counterproductive. An uneducated child becomes a future burden on any society. A call for solidarity. No country can prosper in isolation. South Africa enjoys significant political influence in Africa and the global South. It sits in the G20 and BRICS. That influence is rooted not in its wealth alone, but in the moral authority earned through its liberation struggle. If South Africa forgets the solidarity that freed it and continues to persecute black foreigners, it risks becoming isolated, morally and diplomatically. Nations that once boycotted apartheid may begin to question their ties. Investors and tourists may look elsewhere. More importantly, ordinary Africans will withdraw the goodwill that bound our continent together during its darkest hours. So, to my South African brothers and sisters, remember who carried you to freedom. Honor the Zambian soldiers who defended the ANC, the Mozambican families who hid activists, the Nigerian students who donated their pocket money, and the Tanzanian villagers who shared their food with refugees. Remember the words of your own leaders who warned against prejudice. Use your vote, your voice, your creativity to build an inclusive nation where no child goes to bed hungry or is denied a desk in a classroom. Xenophobia is a betrayal of our shared history. Solidarity is our path to a better future. Protocol Africa Unit is watching. The world is watching.